Thank goodness the action was great. I mean, come on, it's Zack Snyder. He is always gonna make great action. Welcome to Sandwich Reviews. I'm the Talking Sentient Sandwich, and I pleasantly enjoyed watching part 2 of Rebel Moon, the Scargiver. I didn't really mention the action in my last review since I was so concerned with how boring it was to present the audience with a character and then do almost nothing with them again and again. But the fight scenes and action is the spotlight of where you're really going to draw the fun from. Not all of it is great, but towards the end especially, it gets stellar. And when that action is great, the camera work is also extraordinary, highlighting what Snyder does best: cool-looking explosions and action. Unfortunately, that action is the one positive that shines through the rest of the movie's mediocrity. I would have loved to say that this movie fixed all of the problems I had with the first part, but it suffers from a lot of the same issues, though I have to admit that it at least made an effort. While I still feel like I don't know any of these characters and therefore don't care about them, this movie made an effort to make me think about them. We even got a Suicide Squad-like scene where everyone takes turns telling their backstory, and after almost 3 hours of watching these characters, I actually started to consider that they were real people with real lives. I mean, that scene could have been built up more organically, and it certainly could have been more fluid, but it was an effort I respected. And I think I was willing to give this movie more leniency because this was the actual Magnificent Seven Samurai plot that I wanted to see. Due to that, the story is focused on this one town and its struggle. I wish I cared more about these people, but the drama and emotion were at least there this time around. I'd say that if you enjoy spectacle without too much investment into drama, check out Rebel Moon Part 2, The Scargiver. But unless you fit that very specific requirement, this movie is not for you. There's not too many spoilers to bring up, but I do want to get into some of the plot details, so spoiler warning from here on out. While the actor does a great job, I think the Emperor was miscast. Not that he's even present in the movie, but for those few moments he's on screen, he's not threatening at all. That could be because when I look at him, all I see is the henchman from the Hawkeye show, but for being 2 movies into this franchise, I'm not feeling the weight of his power or actions. He's just the generic big bad. The story and setting aren't developed that well either, but I did appreciate the stormtrooper who turns to their side. He is in the first, but he gets a lot more to do here. Him and some other characters from the village help flesh out the world, but that setting still comes off as barren, like the only events that occur in the whole universe are the events that we see on screen. Like I mentioned earlier, the action is amazing, but past that, I think the setup and payoffs for the in-between beats work much better in part 2, and a lot of that came down to tangible threats. Numberless, nameless stormtroopers don't mean anything, but give them a tank that you see destroying everything in its path, and suddenly it's a lot easier to get invested in the action. And during that tank scene, we finally see my main man Jimmy, who, if you've seen my part 1 review, know is the only character I actually like. But he's also barely in this movie. He gets almost the same amount of play as part 1, only getting 1 dialogue scene and 1 action scene. Though, like last time, when he comes out to fight, it is incredible. It sucks that Jimmy was relegated to being an ex machina in the narrative, but it was awesome to see him nonetheless. And for the final battle, we got a cool lightsaber fight with stunning choreography. However, I was taken out of that whole fight because both swords were colored the same. Would it have been that hard to make one red? It's a stupid thing to get caught up on, but it was in the back of my mind the entire scene. After that, Gunner dies and I feel like I was supposed to feel something. I mean, the impact of that tragedy was supposed to make me emotional in some way, but I just felt nothing. That moment was definitely meant to be the emotional crux of the movie, and it just did not work. But in this movie, whenever we got to an action scene, I was fully entertained, and that alone made it worth watching for me. Leave a comment and let me know what you thought of part 2 of Rebel Moon. As always, thanks for watching. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe for weekly videos and reviews, and enjoy a delicious sandwich.